A new age of wireless connectivity is about to be set free. Many of you are currently using either 3G or 4G to connect to the internet from your smart device. 5G will be soon available. We'll break down the difference and what that means for you in the future. We're also going to be talking about watered power vehicles, pointing lasers at vehicles. Let's see, I'm trying to read my notes here. Oh, yeah, robots on oil rigs and so much more. At the control panel, producer extraordinaire Jim Walsh.
Hello.
So did your dad ever call you James when you were in trouble?
James. Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Well, I spent my first 2.5 years of school in Catholic school where they always used James or Jonathan or Catherine or Kathleen.
Sure.
Or Candace or Margaret and Mary.
Not for you, though. Those names weren't for you.
Well, they didn't call me Margaret Mary. They called me James.
Yes, James.
That got a little. I also went through a period in college when I was feeling really self-important, and I insisted people called me James. That didn't last very long.
Really?
No.
So that's interesting, though. I mean, did you just decide that you liked Jim better later on, or?
Well, Jim, that's my name. I mean, that's what my friends call me.
Yeah.
And that's the way I've always looked at it. I don't like Jimmy.
Okay.
Jimmy evokes memories of my childhood and condescending adults.
So I know
Jimmy,
some people.
don't do that.
Yeah, I know. I know some people who still go by Jimmy as an adult, but
you see that a lot in the South.
But you don't
like Jimmy Carter.
Exactly right.
Jim McConnell.
But you don't see that a lot with Tim or Timmy.
Timmy, oh yeah,
Timmy. Timmy is more of the adolescent.
I think
name,
Timmy. I think a little tiny kid.
That's exactly right.
A kid with a big dog, maybe.
Exactly.
I see.
So did you ever play Pac-Man?
Oh, yeah.
Were you big in the arcade scene when that first came out in the 80s?
Pac-Man was not really my game. I liked Centipede.
Oh, really?
That was my favorite.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That really surprises me because that really wasn't.
I don't look like a Centipede kind of guy.
Well, it was somewhat popular, but I always played Centipede because Asteroids or Pac-Man was busy. So then you kind of went over to Centipede and you got okay with that, I guess.
So, what I found out about Pac-Man was, if you get through the first round of it,
right,
and there's no real set pattern for the first round, but like the second through the 10th pattern, the second through the 10th round, the pattern, you can memorize them, and you can work through it. Yeah.
And I think a lot of them, even like Donkey Kong or whatever, all those were kind of, you could memorize a certain few of them anyway.
I remember Donkey Kong Jr., that was one. There was a local convenience store where I worked in Maryland that had Donkey Kong Jr. That was the big game there.
Yep.
That would have been around 82, 83.
Okay. Yeah, that's when all those
some of the others. Those are the big ones.
Those were the big ones.
Those are the ones that just pop right in my head.
Well, and I mean, I would go to the arcade, and I mean, I would just blast through quarters like crazy.
Oh yeah.
So and after a while, I was
actually roll of quarters. Boom.
I was pretty good at Asteroids. I could put a quarter in a machine and play a half hour or 45 minutes usually.
I had a home version of it.
Really?
Somebody gave it to me. We had a promotion at a radio station, and they had extra boxes of this home version of. This is like again the early '80s, before it got really super high tech like it is today. And this one game, the default game on the thing was Asteroids, a version of Asteroids. Now in this version, you got through the first round. And then it got more complicated, like the second through the fourth round.
Right.
You would have like landmines coming at you.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then the next round after that, the landmines would be magnetically attracted to your ship. So you had to hit them before they hit you.
Wow.
And they were coming after you.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I did get to a point where I got through like the first 4 or 5 rounds, and then I lost interest.
So in Minot, North Dakota, the home
of the Minot Air Force Base.
Yes, exactly.
Magic City.
I was actually working at a fast food restaurant at the time, and the owner's son was the manager of this place, and I was pretty good friends with him.
Okay, sure.
And we talked a lot about what we could do to bring more business in. So we brought a couple of arcade games into this place, and it was an instant hit. I mean, we were busy in the evenings like we had never been busy before. And one of them, of course, was an Asteroids game, and this one kid got pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And he actually, and I think he set the world record at the time, but we were open for like 42 hours straight. He played on one quarter for 42 hours.
I would imagine you could have gotten some serious press out of that.
We actually did. It was kind of a fun
TV
thing.
station.
Absolutely.
Up,
They were all there, kind of taking that in. So it was kind of fun. I suppose everybody's wondering why we're talking about this, but the father of Pac-Man, Masao Nakamura. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Founder of Namco, and it might be no, I think it is pronounced Namco. Died yesterday.
Okay, he was from Japan, I see.
Yes, from Japan, and so he's not the inventor of Pac-Man. That is Toru Iwatani, and he was actually in the movie Pixels just 6 or 8 months ago with Adam Sandler,
right?
Because of the Pac-Man, that was in there. So the inventor of Pac-Man is still around, but the father of Pac-Man, the owner of the company Namco, which had many other games at that time, of course, but the biggest one for them was Pac-Man. That's what put them on the map. So passed away yesterday. So it was I have a lot of great memories from that time of my life. I guess
I remember all the girls loved Pac-Man.
Yeah, I would say that.
I think it scored high on the cuteness factor.
Well, they had Miss Pac-Man, too.
That's right.
They really, and you're right about that. There weren't a lot of games that really attracted women.
Yeah,
a
few.
But Pac-Man was one of them.
Yeah.
There was a lot of women that played Pac-Man.
I think women were just very envious of anything that could eat that much without gaining weight.
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
That was pretty good. So, the Amazon Echo. We talk about that a lot on this show. And not that I wanted to talk a lot about it today, but there's some interesting stats that came out over the weekend about it. And most technology, and I'm sure you're not going to be shocked by this, but men generally, speaking of that, men versus women type of thing, men generally buy technology.
Yeah, I think men see technology as an end in itself. They like the gadgetry aspect.
I'm guessing you're right. Yep.
Yeah.
But the Amazon Echo is interesting because 50% of the revenue come from women.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, I would still consider the Amazon Echo, which, by the way, for those who don't know what this is when you say Alexa or computer, and then this device. Standalone device actually talks back to you.
You have one.
I have one. We've had it on the show.
Hosted on the show a couple of times.
Absolutely, yeah. And I use it every day. It's an amazing device. And, so I find that interesting. The other thing that's interesting about this is that older than average buyers of technology are gravitating towards this. So, and I know people who have purchased these for their grandmothers or mothers, whatever, that are in their 70s and 80s that probably wouldn't even consider buying a computer or whatever at this time, are interested in this because they simply can talk to it and get the answers that they want.
Well, again, with women, they use it for what it's designed to be used for, to help them cleaning the house or balancing the budget or on the job, maybe, whatever to do. Whereas I say, like men, it's almost like an electric train kind of thing, where they just, it's flashy, it lights up, it makes noise, that's cool.
And I agree with that. There is that thing, I don't know about, well, I suppose cleaning that, you're right about cleaning the house. I guess I was like, why are you saying that? But it's because you can actually sync the Amazon Echo to your robotic vacuums.
Right.
And tell it to go vacuum or
Alexa,
whatever. Yeah.
Turn on the Roomba.
That's right. Or turn on the lights, or turn down the music, or whatever you want it to do. So
turn on the garden sprinkler.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
There's a commercial where you see that.
Yeah. It's amazing the things that you can do with the household functionality, with the Amazon Echo. So after the break, everybody, we will continue our conversation with all of this great stuff. We're going to be talking about robots on oil rigs. We're going to talk about how to power your car with water and where that's going right now. And after that, later in the show, we'll be talking about 5G versus 4G. So come on back.
Right now, 41 degrees.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek at Facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or TheTechRanch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank everybody who follows us on the Blueberry Network. We're also on the Tech Podcast Network, if it's tech, it's here. We're also on the Roku, iTunes, Tuned In, and, of course, our own app, Radio Pup. So all kinds of places that you can follow us live. Or, of course, if you want to catch the show at a later time, maybe you missed something today that you want to catch later on, you can find us all kinds of places later on. So, and, of course, at the control panel, he's typing away over there. I'm interrupting him now. I probably shouldn't have done that.
I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm back.
I'm interrupting your thought process while you're while you're typing over there.
Yeah.
So
I'm just
sorry
kind of
about that.
getting into the music here, getting
Yes.
into the groove, getting my groove back.
I have we call it Monday head at work.
Monday head. I
You
love
know,
that. Yeah.
I have it today too. It's just like I do not want. There's just the weekend wasn't long enough this time.
yeah.
And I guess I'm just kind of suffering from that too. I guess, but anyway, we're talking a little bit about. I have a variety of topics today. Robots on oil rigs.
Robots and oil rigs.
So there's a company called Iron Roughneck, or the Iron Roughneck, I guess, made
Yeah.
by National Oil Well Varco Incorporated. Automates the repetitive and dangerous task of connecting hundreds of segments of drill pipe. So basically, what now takes 20 people to do takes 5. This is one of the most dangerous parts of working on an oil rig, by the
Yeah.
way. So they have figured out a way to create a robot that will do most of this work, this very dangerous work. The downside of that, of course, is that it goes from 20 people doing this to 5.
Yeah, I would think the unions would be kind of unhappy about that.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
But of course, you need people that build the robots and take care of them.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
it's just a little different, and I would imagine in that environment, that is not like it's replacing people. It's just replacing maybe the type of work you're going
Yeah.
to be doing in the future, because these type of robots are going to need extensive maintenance.
Sure.
Because this is extremely difficult, dangerous
Yeah.
work, and you want to make sure that equipment is operating at optimal efficiency. So
Well, the problem is if you're a guy who works the oil rig, if you're a roughneck and then you get displaced by a robot, let's say you're 55 years old,
Right.
you know, you still got time left before you can work up to your retirement, but you're a little old to be retraining to be a
that
robot
is-
engineer.
That is the
that's kinda
challenge, and
yeah.
this is the challenge across all of technology right now. I mean, you think about where
Right.
we're going with autonomous vehicles. People are being displaced all over the place right now. Restaurants,
Right.
I mean, people, even McDonald's and other fast food
Yeah.
restaurants are going to be moving towards, kiosks where you can order instead of walking up to the counter and ordering
Yeah.
from somebody. I mean, there's more and more of that going on all the time. So I don't know what the right answer to this, Jim. I mean,
I don't either.
I'm an early
I don't
adapter.
know.
I love the technology. You and I talked about the McDonald's scenario because
Mm-hmm.
we ran into one of these, I think, in Missouri a couple of months ago. Alice and I were down there traveling through.
I've
we ran
seen
into
them.
this.
There's a delicatessen in my hometown.
Okay.
The last time I was there, I walked in. They had a kiosk set up for making deli sandwiches.
Yep.
You could just enter the information yourself. Now, there was a guy behind the counter
Right.
making the sandwiches.
Right.
But he actually took the orders through a kiosk. So I don't know if that's an example of, I don't know if anyone was actually displaced there.
Yeah, it's hard to say,
Yeah.
and I think that I think this is probably the bigger thing is that more and more people eat out all the time.
Right.
I mean, I don't know about you, but my frequency eating out has gone up as I've gotten older, and I don't think as many people cook at home
Yeah.
anymore. So more and more people eat out all the time. It used to be a treat to go out once a week or once a month. Now it's a daily ritual
Yeah.
for most people. So you need to have more and more restaurants anyway to keep up with that demand.
Well, there are the seen effects and there are the unseen effects. Like you say, to build this machinery, you have to hire people and train people
Right.
to fix it and maintain it.
Right.
But that's not always as apparent to the public. All they see is this one poor guy who
That's
lost
correct.
his job.
That's correct. I mean,
You know.
you could go back to when gas stations went to self-serve.
Right.
That was a huge impact on a lot of people in that industry because, nowadays, I mean, when you go to a convenience store gas station, you might have 1 or 2 people working in there. But you and I remember when it used to be full serve.
Used to be a guy came out, he would wipe the windows,
Oh, my
check
goodness.
the oil, dollar gas.
All of that. So there was probably, where there's 2 now, there was 4 or 5 or
Yeah.
6 before, So these things change. They change the way we do things. And I would imagine that if you're coming out of school, you better have some type of technology background
Yeah.
behind you, even though you might be going into something else. Maybe you're a hairdresser or you really want to be a chef or these type of things. That's great, but you better have some technology behind you
Yes.
because I have a feeling that, even 20 years from now, even the hairdressing field is going to be impacted by robots and all of this other stuff. You'll come in and you'll say, I want to look like this, and you'll push a button and
Yeah.
it'll make your hair look that way.
I had a guy ask me about this a couple of years ago. Why he asked me, I don't know. I'm not really an expert on that kind of subject, but I thought about it for a minute. I thought, a good field to get in if you want work in the next 20, 30 years is going to be civil engineering.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of the whole infrastructure thing, whether it's Trump or whoever, they're all saying we need to rebuild our infrastructure.
Yep.
That's going to be a boom market.
And, of course, IT, another one that you can certainly get into. And anything to do with robotics, with 3D printing.
Yeah.
I mean, any of that type of stuff, you certainly can get into and probably do very well. Of course, anything to do with drones right now, oh my goodness, probably one of the hottest things you can get into. I know some people who graduate in that precision ag arena. They come out of school making $125,000 a year.
Oh, sweet!
I mean, it's amazing.
It
what's
can
going
be
on
done.
there. It can be done. Absolutely, it can be. Somebody figured out. If you're going into school right now, that might change 5 or 10 years from now. As
I was
going to
say, how long will it stay hot?
Yeah.
We don't know.
I mean, it'll probably stay hot for quite some time.
Yeah.
But there's a shortage of workers right now, so that escalates your value as you come out of school. Now when that catches up, that might change. It might still be a $70,000 or $80,000 a year job. Probably won't be $125,000, but that's still not a bad living.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I don't know. I mean, are there things? You and I are kind of at that age. Knowing now what you know and take it back to school. Is there another field maybe you would have went into because of technology and the way
I
things
thought
have
about
changed?
this. Believe me, if I could go back to when I was, say, 10 years old and maybe be a lot more math intensive.
Okay.
And really learn the math. Math is something I came to late in life, and I'm still not that great at it, but I'm a lot better than I was even 10, 20 years ago.
So
And
some
I'm
people
thinking starting from scratch, I would have done the math thing, then maybe engineering.
So some people will make the argument now that you don't even have to really learn that type of thing anymore because it's so readily available. But it's really not the process. I mean, it's really not the ability to put numbers and things together to come up and make it that type of thing. It's the ability to come up with a process to create an equation, isn't it, to try to figure things out that
Well, I
normally
mean, like
would be
you
out
said
there.
before, even if we have machines doing this, there has to be at some end of the line somewhere, there has to be a human being who will fix and maintain the machines.
Right.
Even if it's the machine that runs the machine that runs the machine, at some point there has to be a human being in the factor.
I think the thing with math is that it probably brings the thing of, you start thinking about what if. You have that possibilities of what if I did this, what if I did that, if I created this series of numbers over here.
Yeah.
Where does that lead me to? And I think that's probably the bigger thing because nowadays, I mean, I can talk to Alexa and say, I can have her balance my checkbook if I want to.
Yeah.
And I don't even know anybody really anymore. I hate to admit this, but I haven't balanced my checkbook in years.
Isaac Asimov wrote a story, I read it when I was in high school, about a future society where there was a guy who was a whiz at mathematics. He knew it all, calculus, right on down to the most basic stuff. And he was considered a freak, a nut job, because nobody in this society knew any math. It was all done with calculators and computers, even the most basic multiplication,
Right.
What's 2 times 2?
Yes.
Most people probably could do that, but beyond that, they had no clue. And this guy could do it, and you would think he'd, get work, but no, they looked at him like, what's the matter with you? What's all this useless information in your head? Well, it's not useless.
Right. I remember a couple of years ago, I was at a fast food restaurant, and there was a little bit of a power blip, and I was trying to place an order, and the person behind the counter, she finally just gave up, and trying to get my change back to me. And she goes, well, I guess I'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. And she goes and grabs a calculator.
Right.
I was expecting that she'd figure it out on pen and paper or something.
Yeah.
She goes to grab a calculator to figure out my change. I gave her a $10 bill, and it was like $7.34, and I mean, I already know in my head exactly what that is.
Well, when I worked at a fast food place when I was in high school, we counted out the change.
Right. That's a lost art, actually.
$7.28, and you gave me a 10. Okay, $29, $30, $8, $9,
Yep.
$10.
Yep.
Just like that.
Easy, right?
Yeah, it's not that difficult.
No, but people are so used to they punch in the 10 and it shows $2.74. It's supposed to come back, and they just don't know how to use those math.
Yeah, it was a
skills
supermarket,
anymore.
again, in my hometown, not here, but years ago I was in a supermarket where the power went out, and of course all the cash registers, they just, fritzed out.
Right.
And everybody just kind of stood there for about 5 minutes. And then finally, the management came out and he says, okay, and basically everybody had to write everything up on longhand.
Yep.
But they got everybody through there.
Well, that's good.
Check
That's
everybody
good.
out.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, that's enough on robots, I guess. We're going to kind of move into robot. Pointing lasers at vehicles.
Yeah, that was a big thing a couple of years ago.
Well,
Well, that thing with the airplane.
Yes.
Somebody pointing one at an airplane and it got in the pilot's eye.
Yes. Well, in fact, I got some interesting stats on that and how often it still happens, by the way, including some jail time for somebody with something that happened just recently. So we'll talk about that after the break, everybody.
Right now, 41 degrees.
Live news headlines and weather together. Weekdays on Super Talk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
So my favorite thing to use a laser pointer for is making the cat go crazy.
Oh, yeah, they love it.
Have you ever done this with your cat?
Oh, yes, I have 2 cats, and they go nuts.
They go crazy.
Yeah.
They go crazy. So, yeah. Yeah, there's pointing your laser at vehicles, any type of vehicle.
Not
Actually,
cool.
I
Not
think,
cool.
yeah, I mean, whether they're driving down the street or flying an aircraft is not a good thing. And in fact, it is a federal offense to do so. But I suppose people, I don't know, it's if you see something flying above you, you're thinking, wow, I wonder if I can hit that with my laser pointer, So right now, there are approximately 28 reported instances of this every day in the United States. Pilots that report that they have been, that a laser light has, been, I suppose, somewhere around the pilot so that they can report it. So I find that interesting, actually. Now, I don't know if most of these reports are when they're airborne. I just find it interesting. I don't know how you would actually point a laser at a plane and actually keep up with it when they're moving 400, 500, 600 miles an hour, Jim. I just don't know how you do that.
I would think it'd be luck of the draw.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But if they're taken off, if you're strategically, situated somewhere, I would imagine that you could probably make a little easier game of that. But a Kansas City man was sentenced Thursday to 3 years in prison after he pleaded guilty in September 2016 to pointing a laser at a local police helicopter. Again, a more stationary type of aircraft, and was sentenced to that. So you can actually, there's another gentleman that was fined $9,500 recently as well. So this is a big no-no, everybody. So please do not point your laser pointers at moving vehicles.
There was a Seinfeld episode where some guy was following George all over New York with a laser pointer.
I remember that and drove him crazy, yeah.
But and there have been a lot of there have been urban legends about planes crashing because somebody stuck a laser pointer and it got in the pilot's eye or whatnot. How much do we know about that? Has that really happened? I've never heard of it happening.
I haven't either. I
just
have no
urban
knowledge.
Legend.
I didn't even know there was an urban legend based on that. So interesting. I would imagine in warfare that probably might be something.
Could be.
Where you attempt to blind the pilot or whatever.
Yeah.
So I can see that.
But like I say, it's kind of a long shot if you just happen to catch him.
Right. I just, I don't know how you, it's
if
like.
It works.
It's like shooting, your pistol at an airplane.
Yeah.
People talk about, I just don't know how you would actually hit the airplane. I mean, it would have to be just incredible luck because the bullet travels about as fast as the airplane does.
That's true.
So
I'm thinking of Pat now, that one scene where he's in the middle of an air raid and he's getting really ticked off and he's firing his pistol at a German German fighter plane.
So you think, and no, that's the only reason I'm even bringing this up is because of movies, right?
Yeah.
And you see this happen in movies all the time.
Yeah.
The odds of that happening, oh my goodness, infinitesimal. It's just incredible luck. So
now, if a laser does hit your eye, what kind of damage does it do?
Well, it'll blind you.
It will blind you.
I mean, it's just a temporary blindness thing. Yeah. But I don't know. I would imagine that if it hits the right part of your eye, you might have some permanent eye damage from it.
Again, don't try this at home.
But certainly, it would certainly give you temporary blindness. There's no doubt about that. So it's a high intense beam of light. So you just certainly don't want to do that. But yeah, so don't ever be tempted to do that. because it can have some dangerous consequences. So
keep it home, entertain the kiddies.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Or use it for what they're made for. PowerPoint presentations.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Nobody ever thinks about that anymore when you have one of these things, right? Water-powered cars.
Water-powered cars.
Yes. So, of course, this was talked about a lot a few years ago. Hydrogen fuel cells.
Are you talking about slow fusion or something else?
Well, hydrogen fuel cells.
Yeah.
So it's a chemical reaction where it sucks the hydrogen out of water, and then through a process, your emissions then are water. So it combines with oxygen and then forms water. And through that process, it actually creates water as a byproduct. Okay. So it's kind of interesting, but in that
kind of reverse what we used to do in school, where they'd have the electrolysis thing and they'd separate the hydrogen from the oxygen in the water.
Right. Yeah, but that's kind of what goes on here. But through that process, it actually recombines with oxygen to make water again.
Right.
So,
okay.
But what's interesting about this has been, I won't say it's been theory. It's been around for a long time. Somebody in 1838 actually invented this process. It wasn't really done. There hasn't been much done with it until the 1900s. You see fuel cells on spacecraft. That's probably its number one use. But it's not a water-powered type of fuel cell. So what's interesting is that GM, General Motors, and Honda have partnered to mass-produce hydrogen fuel cells in Michigan. So this is mainstream companies that are putting $85 million into this company dedicated to this effort. So I find that really interesting, and I don't think that they'd be throwing this kind of money at this if they didn't think that this is something that's possible.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see where this will take us 10, 15, 20 years from now. I mean, will you actually be using your garden hose to fill your car up so that you can take it on a trip someplace? It's hard to say.
Well, that would certainly change the political climate.
It would change a lot of things.
The world, yeah.
It would change a lot of things. And that's why I find it interesting. This process is, it's been somewhat dangerous because when you separate hydrogen is extremely flammable, correct?
Yeah.
So when you separate it, that's always been the challenge, is that how do you keep that contained so that it doesn't blow up the car while it's trying to produce electricity.
Doesn't turn your car into the Hindenburg.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So I find this extremely interesting. There is a hydrogen fuel cell that works on water, a fuel-powered or cell-powered submarine drone. So I find that, so you think about that. I would imagine they have to have a pretty good filtration system on that. But if you're a submarine drone, you have all the power you need because you're in the water already.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, there's a lot of water in air as well. And there's been some studies that have been done, that you could actually pull the moisture out of the air, and then, so you would never, ever have to actually fill up your vehicle. You would just actually pull the moisture that's out of the air already. Of course, the downside to that is that there are some times that it's, a lot drier than there are other times.
There are drier climates. I mean, if you're in Florida, that's one thing where it's humid.
That's correct.
But Arizona or parts of Texas where it's really dry.
Dry, yep.
And then I wonder about the environmental impact long term, obviously. If you had millions of these things going on in the country, sucking all the water vapor, what kind of effect would that have on the climate?
But you're actually producing water at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So you're separating. It's kind of a weird thing, actually. You're separating the hydrogen out of water.
Right.
And then through this process, through the fuel cell process, it combines with oxygen to create water.
Oh, okay.
So there is not really a lot of net loss here at all. I mean, it's just using water as a vehicle to produce or to give you hydrogen, and then the byproduct is the combination of oxygen to produce water.
Yeah.
It's a very, very clean technology. And, of course, water is extremely abundant.
I mean, your byproduct is water.
Yeah. I mean, how much cleaner can you get here?
Yeah.
So
people drink this stuff.
It is interesting. And
good old dihydrogen monoxide.
I don't know if you and I will see this in our lifetimes, Jim, but I would love the opportunity to go buy a gallon of distilled water
Yeah.
at a local supermarket or something and just use that to fill my car up instead of gasoline.
Well, I just hate to think that the day I shuffle off this mortal coil, which hopefully, I'm knocking wood here, is a long time off, but I'm just thinking the next day is going to be the day where they have all these great breakthroughs. I'll miss it by that much.
Just that much.
Yeah. No, that'll be the day when they finally cure whatever it is that killed me.
That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, imagine when they finally come up with a formula for immortality. And you're the guy you die the day before they put it on the market.
Of course.
Oh man,
Yeah.
wouldn't that suck?
That would kind of suck. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I know that you have a phone. You have an Android, right?
I haven't. I got it right here.
And this is a relatively new thing for you, having a smart device, right? You've had it
Yeah.
for a year or two now.
Yeah, I mean, I've had cell phones before,
Right.
but they were just cell phones.
Right.
You just pick them up, you dial them, and
Right.
that's it.
So do you find it convenient to have the internet at your fingertips all the time?
Too convenient.
Okay.
I get distracted.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here playing with the damn thing and looking at Facebook and
I
stuff.
see.
I really have to discipline myself not to do that on a regular basis. Now, I never do it when I'm driving.
Right.
But like sometimes at work,
Right.
if things get a little slow, I'll just pick it up and say, let's see who's checking in. Oh, somebody arguing Trump, this, that, and the other. And next thing you know, it's a half hour past, and I haven't gotten anything done.
So the one thing I've noticed, though, is that, in lines and things like that, you're at the grocery store or whatever, and you have to stand in line.
Sure.
I don't see many people complain anymore about
That's
standing in
true.
line. Have you noticed this, too?
Yeah.
Everybody's on their device as they're
They get
waiting
their phone
now.
out and they're looking at.
Well, they're taking care of some business or texting a few friends or doing whatever.
Yeah.
I don't, it used to be when you hopped in the line at the grocery store and it took forever
Yeah.
to get through. People are like, are you kidding me?
They're thinking
Come
all
on.
this time in my life, and they're getting back.
Yep. So that's the one advantage I think I've noticed with smart
Yeah.
devices is that people don't really complain as much in lines. But the reason we're getting to this, everybody, is that 5G is about ready to come out. Right now, most people have 4G. You have 4G on your phone, or do you have 3G?
I believe I don't know. How
Okay.
do you tell?
Okay. Well, I guess
I never
how
even
about
thought about it, to be
okay.
honest with you.
We'll look at it at the break here, and we'll see
Yeah.
if we got. I know I have 4G on mine, but we're going to talk about what this is going to do, why there is 3G, 4G, 5G, what that means actually, as well as what 5G will bring to you here in the near future. So we'll be talking about that after the break, everybody.
Right now, 41 degrees.
The Red River Farm Network. Ag News is here on Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
So Jim and I were just talking about whether or not we have 4G on our phones. Of course,
I think I got 4G
You have
now.
4G
I'm
on
pretty
yours.
sure.
Yeah, I have 4G on mine. Probably the biggest thing that you notice from like 3G to 4G, if you do a lot of GPS, like if you're going to your favorite coffee shop in a new town or whatever, don't know how to get there, you pull up your Google Maps or whatever, and if you have 3G, it doesn't render quite fast enough to keep up with you most of the time.
Right.
Because there just isn't. You just don't have the data stream that you need to. You might have your GPS tell you to turn right after you've gone by the intersection, for example. So that's kind of probably the most telltale sign. Of course, the internet is a lot slower on a 3G than a 4G. But of course, there was 1G and 2G in the past as well. And G stands for generation, by the way. So first generation, second generation, third generation. We're now on the fourth generation of how we get data to our phones and other smart devices. So now we're coming up with 5G. So, originally when we had basically 2G, so 1G came out in the early 1990s, expanded to 2G when companies first started enabling people to send text messages between two mobile devices. So that was second generation data transfer. 3G gave the people ability to make phone calls, send text messages, and browse the internet. So basically, 3G is the first time. There was probably some things in 2G that you could browse and that type of thing, but 3G is when it really came out. 4G enhanced many of the capabilities that were made possible with the third generation of wireless. People could browse the web, send text messages, make phone calls, and even download and upload large video files without too many issues. Yes, GGGG. So, but the challenge that we're getting to here now is that right now there's about 6.4 billion connected devices in the world. 6.4 billion. Billion.
That's about the number of people we have.
It's
in the world.
close to the number
Very
of people.
close.
Yes, very good.
7 billion. I think
Yes,
7 billion.
7 billion, I
is
think
the
it
number.
is. Yeah. So we basically have one connected device for every person in the world
Yeah.
right now. It's expected to go to 20.8 billion devices by 2020. So
Which is only a couple of years.
3
down the
years
road.
away. So
Yeah,
we're
3 years.
talking a threefold increase in devices in the next 3 years that are connected to the internet. Now, these are not devices that are smart devices, although there'll be some of that too. Other countries are coming into play now. Countries who would, if I was a third world country right now, I would not invest in infrastructure, for example, for copper wire. Why would you put technology in to have phone service in your country when everything can be wireless now, right?
Well, copper wire is also people like to steal it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a big problem with radio companies now. People breaking into our transmitters for the copper.
I didn't know that.
Yes, that's true.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm speechless. I didn't even know how to answer that.
It's weird, I know, but
I guess copper does
there have
have
been
value.
a bunch of stories over the last 10 years especially about people trying to break into that's why a lot of your radio transmitters now are fenced in.
Interesting.
Because people try to break in. There's all this copper wiring in the in the circuitry.
Sure.
People break into there and try to steal the copper.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So 5G basically will be, so 4G, I'll back up a little bit here. 4G allows you the capability of 1 gigabyte per second.
Okay.
But I don't know anybody who has that kind of speed. It's capable of that, but I'm sure when you're in some type of node or whatever, that's being shared between everybody out there. That's actually a lot of potential that I've never seen actually materialize.
Plus, we get used to it. Human nature, you get used to it. All of a sudden, it's not very special anymore.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So 5G, they're saying that it'll be 10 gigabits per second.
Okay.
So it's 10 times faster. And, of course, that speed allows even more devices to be on board and that type of thing. So that and those devices are going to be everything from locks in your home to Alexa, the Amazon
Alexa.
Echo. I mean, just that in itself, who knows how many of those type of devices will be around in 2 or 3 years. I mean, they can't even keep up with the demand of Amazon Echo right now. So that in itself is pretty interesting. So you're going to see more and more, connected lights. Everything is going to be connected in the future, and including cars. And there's a lot of cars on the road too, and all these vehicles are going to have to be connected somehow or another. So they look at this ability to have this high-speed transmission to kind of help along with the connected car scenario, because there's a lot of data that has to go through there as well when you think about it. So that's kind of the big deal here. And a lot of us have plans, and this is the thing that concerns me, and I hope that they work this out, but I think I just upped mine to a 10 gig a month plan. So I have 10 gigs a month right now, and if I go over that, then I get hit with a surcharge. And I've been upping mine all the time because I go over mine all the time, and I don't like to pay. I think it's $15 a gig.
I used to do that all the time with my phone until I got the Wi-Fi plan. The Wi-Fi plan was only a couple dollars more.
Right. Yeah, for you, I couldn't believe that you didn't have Wi-Fi in your home before that.
And we finally called it in, and we're holding our breath. How much more is it to get Wi-Fi? Oh, above what you're paying, about $2.50 a month. As opposed to shelling out $75 a month when we go over everything.
Right. That's exactly right, because it's expensive when you go over. So, but when you have that higher speed, and now you're going to have all these other devices connected probably to it as well, potentially. Especially if you're in your vehicle. Is your vehicle going to be connected all the time? So, you're going to have more data that comes with that, and hopefully the prices. I noticed that some companies now are starting to offer unlimited data, and it's pretty spendy. But I'm guessing that price is going to come down over the next couple of years, so that you can connect your car.
There's also more things that can go wrong.
A lot more things,
and more complicated things that can go wrong. Yeah. I mean, it's already to the point now with your car where if your car breaks down, half the time you got to bring in some genius to fix it.
Right. The thing that really, and you're right about that, Jim. It's one of those things that I think when we get to the world of autonomous vehicles, I'm hoping that our vehicles really aren't connected to the internet, because it just I think there's enough room on the vehicle that you can store data, store everybody's map.
With all the potential for hacking and the EMP thing we talked about, where stuff gets fried and doesn't work anymore.
So I'm hoping that they look at that. I mean, I'd say that the community and the autonomous vehicle community is about split right now between connectivity to the vehicle all the time and just having it connected when you go home or when you park someplace, and then it does its updates and all that other stuff at that time. So I'm hoping that is the way it goes. But you're right. I look at, what was it, 2 weeks ago in the North Dakota area, we didn't have internet. A lot of the state didn't have internet for a day or two, right?
Now, we had it here, but a lot of folks, we've had times when we didn't have it.
Right.
And you walk in the morning. I mean, right now it's a minor inconvenience for me.
Right.
But I can see a day when it would become something that would be a life or death situation.
For some places it is, and you think about
hospitals.
Well, and that's absolutely right. There's a lot of think about credit cards, and just to think about the business,
the whole monetary system.
Nobody can run it. You go into buy your favorite fast food for lunch or whatever, you can't even pay for it with your credit card because the internet is down. And you're like, it's not like the old days. And even your phone systems, half of them are called VoIP now, Voice over Internet Protocol. So if the internet goes down there, you're not even able to make a phone call. So then that goes into like the 911 services. A lot of the 911 services are now internet-based as well. So if the internet goes down in that area, nobody can make a 911 phone call.
There was a book that came out a few years ago, 1 Second After. It's a novel. Basically about, it was a worst case scenario, obviously, because that's what people want to read. Very apocalyptic about this terrorist group that exploded a large nuke way high over the country.
Right.
And it just fried everything.
Right.
And all of a sudden we're like back to the early 1800s. But think of all the people who had to rely on things like computer technology for their, diabetes medication, things like that.
Yeah, and it goes on and on and on. These things are fantastic when they work.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times I think a person really has to think about fail-safe. Just like you think about backing up your hard drive and all this other stuff. If it's critical information for you, you need to have a worst-case scenario to have some of this stuff backed up. And if your lights are connected to the internet and that's the only way you can turn them on and off,
that's a mistake.
I'm thinking you better have a light switch somewhere in the house too.
Well, the guy in the book, he's got an old car that belonged to, I think, like his father-in-law from the early 50s.
Right.
An old Edsel or something, whatever. And because it was pre-high-tech, it still uses all the old analog technology for the ignition, and the car works.
Right.
The only car in town that works.
It's this
because
old
it's
one.
like 60 years old.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. I'm hoping that's the case for me too, Jim.
Yeah.
When I'm 60, I'm the only one. Well, I won't say that. So.
Well, I'm already there. Let's not talk about it.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been a great show, Jim.
Oh, fantastic.
I love it. And next week, everybody, we will be back with some cool new stuff. So you want to come back for that.
And we'll have the show up on the podcast page next day or so.
Okay, that sounds good, Jim. Have a
Thank
great
you.
week, everybody.